Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it's Wednesday. It's January 30th. This will be our chart lesson for the day, and it was mostly uphill today. It was an FOMC day, so generally about an hour before that news item comes out, and maybe for the first few minutes, you can see right at 1 o'clock how we had this quick two legs up, and the uptrend started again. Early on, we were just in this trading range. It's two tiered here. Actually, it looks like there was a lower tier, and then we moved up a higher tier, and this turns out to be. Notice how once we broke through there, notice how we came back and tested it a couple of times before we went on higher. Even here where it broke through, notice we came back and tested it a couple of times before it went higher. And that's generally what happens when prices push through support and resistance. They usually come back and test it. And but again, the blue area is around from 12 o'clock till prices kind of settle back down to normal again. Then there's a couple more trades there. Not a lot of trades today. Sometimes on days like this where you get a big news item, you just don't, you really don't want to be in a trade an hour or so before the news comes out, because sometimes on especially FOMC days, you'll get stuck in a little tight range. It's real tight that just goes like this for a couple of hours. And if you get in that an hour before a trade and you don't get a chance to get out, then it's not good. So because you don't want to be sitting on a trade right waiting on that news to come out, because look how it jumped. And if you're on the wrong side here, even if you're on the right side, it runs down real fast before it runs up. So there's just too much opportunity to get whipsawed and take a loss even if you got the direction right. So generally I tell people just be flat about an hour before a very important news item like FOMC. And won't take long today. I apologize about yesterday not being able to mark the trades. I just didn't have time. I had another obligation I had to go to, and I just didn't have time to do it. But I did try to upload my chart just so you could quickly see what I was, what I saw that day. But for the most part, we had a little tight range here, and then a nice uptrend. Looked like it was going to end here, and or at least come back and test this before going higher. But once that news came out, this thing rocketed up. So obviously the market must have liked the FOMC news. I haven't even looked to see. I'm assuming, I don't know if there were any changes in the interest rates or not. I haven't looked to see. But I'm gonna back out. We'll go through the trades, and we'll wrap today up. Back out where we can get a little further. But you had to be patient today. There was a trade right in here around the 7 o'clock hour. Notice you got a new high, then a first entry, second entry, and you're not quite back to the EMA. The fact that we're still above the EMA, I normally would say avoid this trade, but there's enough room there to scalp out. So this turns out to be just a quick scalp back, and it may turn and come back because this has been a range, and we may come back all the way. Although by moving that far, I would look probably for a measured move. And if you measured this early part, actually you may not have had this right, because you can see that turns out to be the midline. But if I'd have been looking for highs earlier, I probably would have had this a little bit lower than what it is. And then you probably, let's just say even if you measured it off these highs right here, then you move, that looks for your target. It still gets you in the same place, you can see there. So it's not much difference, tick or two. But once we started going higher, I'd look for that measured move. But anyway, when I came in, we were trading up, and you get this little quick scalp back. And again, it could be the high. It could turn out to be an important high, but it's a failed second entry long. So your signal bar doesn't really matter, and it does confirm that trend line. So what I'm looking at is this room back here. Generally, you would want to be on the other side of that EMA on that reversal. But since you were not quite back to it, you figure we're coming back, especially when you've been away from it for a while. And so you may take that one. I still got it marked green. It's a little aggressive, but you may have taken that trade. And there was a second entry long right here as well. I didn't mark this one, but it should be at least green. And you might even argue for that to be blue. It's a little hard to determine if there's a close outside here. It's not a convincing close. So this is basically a double top. So first entry, second entry. So it's like two legs down to the EMA, first break of this trend line. So odds are we're going to try to make a new high. And so you may take that trade. I wouldn't mark it blue just simply because I'm a little bit worried about this channel right here. And then of course we bounce, and then we just start going sideways. And when you're going, this is just a tight range between this high and these lows. So the only way you can really enter this is on a good signal bar that has enough room to get out before here going long, or a signal bar that'll get a good signal bar that gets you out going short before you get to here. And so you got a little room there, so I like that one. This bar is too bullish. Otherwise, if I'd been a nice little bearish bar, I would have said, hey, that's probably worth taking right there just to ride it back, but it's not a very good signal bar. And then this one is tempting here, but notice how we pushed on through that time and made a new low. I'd want to wait on a higher low here. You actually get a higher low here, but now you're, or actually you don't get a higher low here. You get a second entry here, but not a higher low. But now you're pushing below here, and when this breaks higher and fails and gives you that failed second entry long, I like going short right there. Because it's really looking like this is a range day, and this is a really tight range, and this is what you kind of want to see. You want to see this support act as resistance, and maybe have some kind of trap or something. And so that's the reason I like that one to the short side. And then of course you really, this is a double top, and then you pull down first entry and you get a second entry long, and look how it turns down right off of that EMA. But if you draw the trend line off these lows and drag it up here, you can see where it fits right across this top too. And that's a really bearish bar right there. So I like, and that is a second entry short. Notice that low, and there's a first entry, and then you go higher, and then there's a second entry. It's off the EMA trend line. And we run down. There's actually a failed second entry long here, but now you're right into this midline. It never breaks lower, it just kind of keeps going sideways here. So you never really get a setup. You do get a relatively small bar here. It kind of breaks higher. It's a little bit of a trap, but we just came off the midline. It is the first break of this one, so it's one you might consider here. It's not a great setup. It's one you might consider, especially with that one little tick, where you make this little push higher and fail. If it would have went back out the other side, I'd say for sure you might go short right there, but I'm gonna make this one green. It's not a great setup, but it's one you might consider. So, and of course we bounce, and you come back right here, you get a second entry long. It's a nice bullish bar on a second entry long, and it's the first break of that little trend line right there. So you would expect prices to try to make a new high, and of course that's what it does. And it comes back and it confirms that trend line here. I'd wait on a second entry though, which comes here, and that's not a perfect signal bar. Otherwise I would have marked that blue. It's still relatively bullish, but there's still some stem. I think there's a couple of ticks in that stem at least. So I made that one green for that reason. But it is a second entry long, and it is right off the key entry point, the EMA. Then we just kind of shoot up on this little spike in channel. And I'm not sure what happened there. I didn't have a news item listed on my chart here. This thing rocketed up here. I'm not sure what happened right there. Some kind of news came out, or some kind of announcement. Doesn't really matter. It's just the fact that generally when you see a move like that, some kind of news item or some kind of rumor or something triggers it. So some of you may know if something came out right there. I'm not even going to bother to go look, but something happened right there for that to rocket up like that. I don't know what happened. But notice how we pushed through, and look how we tested it. You got a double test right here. Normally I would say you might go long, but we're so far away from the EMA. You're stacked up there and have at least one doji. There's stems on both sides. That's dangerous to enter long right there, even though you could probably argue that there's a double test of that. So notice we broke through and tested it once. We tested it, or we made the low right there, and then we came back and tested it, and we tested it twice, and that is a relatively bullish bar. But look how we're just sitting there stacked up. We're not back to the EMA. We're not back to the trend line. In fact, at that point, it looks like this may be upper trend channel, and it looks like we might have even had an overshoot possibly. So that's just not a good place to go long in my opinion. It would have worked, but it's too much chance to get burned there. And then of course we're working back, and you get a second entry long right here, but you don't want to be going long right there. And it fails and turns down. You can't go short here because you're right into the EMA. You don't have much room to back to down here. But you get a close outside and then a move to a new low, and then it bounces right off that trend line with a bit. It actually went lower and turns and goes out the other side. I like going long on a sell stop right there. And you could really look at this as a double top, so that brings it back first entry, and that also makes that a second entry long. So, and I didn't see anything else I liked here. There's a higher low here, not a very good signal bar. It does pull back and make a failed second entry short here. And it is right on the EMA, but it's just such a neutral bar. It's got big stem on both sides. The body's only a tick or two. So, and then we're running back, and there's a failed second entry long right there. But that's the first break of this trend line. And look what would have happened if you went short there. You would have gotten stopped out, only to see it go exactly where you thought it might. And that got you into the 1 o'clock hour and your news, or into the noon hour, I should say. I'm sorry. And that leads into the 1 o'clock hour where the news comes out. And you can see it's a little volatile, but notice the price action works even during news items. But notice it runs up, pulls back, gives you a first entry, pulls back, gives you a second entry long. Not a very good signal bar, but it is a reversal type pattern. And look how it takes off. And it works its way back here again. And what I was looking at here, notice that's a double bottom, and you get a first entry, and you try to go higher again. You get a second entry short that fails, and it bounces right off the EMA, right off the former trend line. It gives you a big bullish bar. It went lower here and then turned, so you could have gone long on a buy stop right there, or you could have waited on this one. You're really into some highs here. So you may let this break higher and drop a limit order back a tick or two and see if you can get a little better entry. If you try to get much more than that, it would have passed you by. Then it runs up, and there's actually a little failed second entry short here, but we didn't break higher first, so I really don't like that one. There is a higher low here, and actually I forgot to mark that one. Notice the low, right, or lower low right here, and then first entry short and then second entry short. So there's a little higher low right there. So that's a new low. So that was probably a good trade, especially if you were looking at this at two-tiered by this time. And I forgot to mark that one. So let me change that to blue because that's a good trade. And runs on up, and where does it turn down? Right off the top part. Then we work back, and you get a first entry. Try to go lower again, so you get a second entry long, but you've kind of gone into this tight range. Notice that resistance across there and support across here, so you got to have room to get out, but it does give you a bullish bar way down here, and you got these previous lows, and you try to go lower once, twice, so it's like a little double test with a bullish bar, and as long as you got room to get out, you probably want to take that one. And you might let it break higher here and drop a limit order to see if you could get a little better entry, but there was enough room there to get out anyway, and so it would have worked regardless. And then you make a little double bottom, and you make a higher low here. This is really your signal bar though, and it's two bears. This is a nice bullish bar, but it's got a higher low, and it is the first break, so you expect it to go higher, but notice how it gapped over there too, so you probably wouldn't have got filled on that, even if this had made a lower low and then this bar, and this was a true signal bar, you still probably wouldn't have got in it anyway. And then of course there's a failed second entry short here, but you're just too far away from the EMA. It's just too big a chance that it breaks higher, and it might even go up here, but then it turns before it gets 4 ticks, and then look at that big sell-off, and you don't want to get caught in that. So yeah, there just weren't a lot of trades today. A lot of times after 1 o'clock, you don't see many trades. We did see 3 today, but notice how it really slows down up here around 120 or so. I mean, it's really almost an hour later before it starts. Well, actually, I shouldn't say an hour, 120 to, I mean, it's maybe 30, 45 minutes before it takes off again. And it does make a new high, and then it's sold off since then. And we just kind of got back in this range, and it's a little bigger now. This is all after 2 o'clock, so I'm not even going to worry with it. But just not a lot of trades today. There's enough here that you could find 2 or 3. And you might could have argued for some of these others in here, but they were too risky in my opinion. So if I didn't at least mark it green, I just think it's too risky. Doesn't mean there weren't some in there if you want to be aggressive that you couldn't try to take, but I don't recommend any of them. So, but anyway, that's going to do it for today. I want to get this done and get it uploaded so I can. I've been trying to leave it a decent hour since I'm not spending as much time here. My vision continues to improve, but I'm not there where I can still look at the chart for long periods of time. It's about 30 minutes is about all I can take looking at the chart at one time now. So, but I'm getting better, and I appreciate people that continue to ask about me. I am improving. Hopefully it won't be too much longer. I can kind of get back to a more or starting to look at the screen for at least a couple of hours every day and kind of build from there. But I'm not there yet. So I got an appointment Monday, and I'm hoping the doctor will tell me that it's probably at least okay to be looking at the screen more. But he's told me to kind of back off a little bit for now anyway, and to let my eye heal. So about 30 minutes is all he wants me to do, and that's really about all I'm up to doing at a time now. So anyway, I'm going to wrap it up. We'll be back again to do it tomorrow and wrap up our week. I'm done for today. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.